Hey everyone, this is George Soto and you're watching Startups Unedited.
Hey everyone, this is George Soto with Soto Ventures. Hope all is well. Today I'm with Kevin Thomas Tully, Kevin, I gotta say, you're one of the hottest marketers out there today. How are you? You're actually joining us from the East Coast today.
Yes, I am, and I appreciate you having me on today, George, because I know it's early out there on the West Coast. Not early for you because I know you're an early riser, but yes, I am physically located here in Baltimore, Maryland today, and I really appreciate you having me on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it as well. I have a cousin of mine who went to Towson State. That's right, in outside of Baltimore. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's very cool little town.
Yeah, it's such a very small world because that's actually my wife's alma mater,
No
and
way.
yeah, I my alma mater is Johns Hopkins, and there's a string of about five colleges and five universities where you can swing a stick and hit all of them, and Towson's within that circle. So that again, small world. You don't know how many times I'll be speaking with people, and the conversation will inevitably come up to, well, where'd you go to school? And usually if I'm speaking to somebody, it doesn't matter where, we'll hit Hopkins, we'll hit Towson, we'll hit one of the other five colleges in the Baltimore area. It's kind of funny that way.
Awesome, awesome. Well, why don't you tell the audience quickly, just kind of, what's your professional background? How'd you get into marketing?
Oh, well, thanks. I'm a scientist by training. And as I said, my undergraduate degree and my graduate study was performed at the world's leading scientific research institution, Johns Hopkins University. And, having grown up in a household where, my mother was a nurse and, I was the first male to attend college, the expectation kind of was like, okay, well, I'm going to be a doctor. Well, I followed the pre-med track, but, inevitably I was drawn to writing where that was my minor. So somewhere along the line, the doctor thing didn't work out. I mean, my first job out of college was as a stringer for a local newspaper in Maryland. And, the Cliff Notes version of my career, George, journalism begat PR. I had my own firm, which begot marketing. Again, had my own firm, was in some corporate work as well. And, marketing, as everyone knows, is eventually going to begat sales. And, eventually it came back full circle to marketing again. Along the way, I've held positions as, CEO, CMO, CSO, and I've built multi-million-dollar sales infrastructures for, corporate and, as an entrepreneur. One of the things I'm most proud of in my career is that regardless of vertical, whenever anyone has an engagement with me, their revenue has gone up on average 30%. And that's over 2 decades worth of work. And now, as you had mentioned, I'm excited to be at the #1 account-based marketing firm in North America, which is Markestry. And, we solve revenue issues for enterprise sales and marketing teams.
Awesome. Thank you. I know you're heading up, marketing enablement. What does that actually mean to, the audience out there?
And that is a really good question. Probably the best way that I can frame that question is, the best definition I heard of sales enablement, and that comes from Tamara Schenk, and she actually called it Salesforce enablement. She described it as a strategic cross-functional discipline designed to increase sales results and productivity. And I'm going to make sure I get this right, by providing integrated content, training, and coaching services for salespeople and frontline sales managers along the entire customer's journey, powered by technology. Now that's a mouthful, but it really encompasses everything that marketing enablement should be. If you sub out the word sales and you put in marketing for that, I would say I'd like to think that marketing enablement would encompass many of these same principles that Tamara had described. But my view of marketing enablement, it's a metrics-driven, revenue-generating process that digitally savvy organizations can and should leverage. It encompasses multiple technologies, like Tamara said, and disciplines. But one of the things that she didn't mention it's got to include social, because social can and it should be measured. And I think that's where a lot of marketing folks kind of shy away from. They're more on the fluffy metric side when it comes to social. And, we'll talk about that hopefully later on in our interview, but that's a very important piece of the marketing puzzle.
You mentioned social, and I've been involved with social for, throughout the SaaS part of my career.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing that I've kind of realized, or, I'd love your opinion on this, is, this whole enablement sort of movement has really, from my view, been driven via the incredible technology that's been able to sort of hit the market over the past few years. We see sales enablement now. I mean, if we think about 10 years ago, you didn't hear these things, right? Like, there wasn't this ecosystem, around Salesforce applications and the App Exchange and this sort of like consumerization of the enterprise. What's your opinion on the marketing sort of, the impact that technology's had on marketing and specifically social media?
Well, I look at technology as an enabler, quite frankly. We'll go back to social, and social selling is very important to me because it's one of the things that I hold dear. And if you look at social selling as a definition, I look at social selling as leveraging social media to generate revenue, and that's it. I mean, social selling essentially is just sales, and that's where a lot of people lose sight of it. So anything that's going to help you leverage social media to generate revenue and do it more efficiently and more quickly, I'm all for that. Especially if it's something that you can do to measure, and especially if you can track your social media activities and measure that in your CRM, where you should do most of your measurement. I think that's the part where a lot of people fall down. Quantifying and measuring social media relationships, it's not intuition and it's not guesswork. And it doesn't detract from the art of sales and marketing. And that's what a lot of people forget.
Yeah, I like to think about it as I am developing conversations with my prospects. Now, in the past, before the telephone, I'd have to knock on their door. Then the telephone was invented. I could give them a call. Now we have the internet, which really has been such, the most innovative thing that's happened to humanity, I would say. But the internet's really been able to facilitate this new touch point, and then even within that touch point, multiple sort of channels, right? So I love that. I had a quick question for you.
Sure.
We've been hearing all about the account-based marketing movement. Now us at Node, we've been now coining the term account-based intelligence, which is more of the data piece to the account-based, marketing and sales development, etc. movement. What is account-based marketing, and what does that mean as a business strategy?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, George, because account-based marketing, it's not anything different than we've done in the past. I mean, you raised a good point about social selling, the way you had to go knock on doors or use the phone, and essentially account-based marketing, it's just good old-fashioned key account selling, except that the technology available to facilitate and measure the process is, what I feel it leads to the invigoration and excitement around the term. It's the technology gets people excited about it. This is something that's long overdue because, we finally have an opportunity to have sales and marketing aligned around a purpose, because you got to think about it. Sales holds all the data and they hold all the relationships. And account-based marketing cannot exist without sales because it's imperative that the one-to-one relationship has to develop between internal sales and marketing teams. I mean, think about what needs to occur. You need to have the marketing leadership and the sales leadership, at the least bit, they have to go out and have a coffee for some reason, because without one and the other, account-based marketing can't occur. And, I wish we could say it was brand new and the millennials invented it and they could take credit for it. But, it's just from a business strategy perspective, account-based marketing, it's the most efficient way to do B2B marketing for three reasons. Number one, it allows for a better spend of marketing dollars. And it's a good old-fashioned, again, 80-20 rule. 20% of your revenue comes from, or excuse me, 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your business. So instead of spending 100% of your marketing dollars across the entire enterprise, you can be more targeted and more systematic with your spend. And then the second part, of course, is the marketing and sales alignment, which I told you about. And then finally, account-based marketing provides the best opportunity for cross-sell and upsell. It shortens the sales cycle and it increases sales revenue. I mean, for those three reasons alone, I mean, companies would be, very short-sighted if they didn't want to apply it. But as far as implementation is concerned, I think that where a lot of companies fall short is their mindset. They need to develop a mindset shift, and it holds them back because there's so much exponential success they can see if they handled it properly. Most companies get so excited about ABM is that they still don't know how to bring all the pieces, how they come together, how they prioritize their efforts, and truly how they measure the effectiveness of their account-based marketing engagement. I'll give you a real quick example, okay? If you want to draw a parallel to social media, the prevailing thinking used to be that you could get an intern to run the entire social media department for a Fortune 500 company. Well, we know that's not true. And then another real quick example. Let's just say you wanted to go on, you wanted to climb a mountain. Would you want to climb Mount Everest using, the latest GPS tool or SaaS-based tool to just climb the mountain? I don't think I would, because, you got to remember the three rules of mountaineering. Number one, it's always further than it looks. Number two, it's always taller than it looks. And number three, it's always harder than it looks. So, while the tool is nice, if I wanted to reach the summit, especially Mount Everest, even small mountain, I would use an experienced guide.
That absolutely. I think a lot about, what account-based marketing meant to me. And for me, it was like super logical, right? To your point, I think there are all these technologies that have emerged that now allow us to be more focused. I mean, we think about the ability to target on, so I used to work at, I was an early employee at this company called Mopub. So I had this really incredible experience learning about ad tech. And if you look at the ad tech capabilities now based on the social graph that was created via, really I'd say Facebook has, in my opinion, the sort of the holy grail there.
Sure.
But if you think about it, I mean, we could run a campaign right now that shows display ads or, even these sponsored posts on Facebook to very specific people that work at very specific companies. Now, if you think about this 20 years ago, when was this? Well, I was young back then, but let's say when I got into my career, about 10 years ago, you didn't have those capabilities, right? The data wasn't there. Humans weren't on the internet now, or at that point. And I think that's probably what I've observed in my short career. Some of the paradigm shifts that's really have changed. Like, we're out there, humans are out there. We're able to associate humans with companies and say, hey, this is our ideal customer profiles, we like to call it, on the blogs and all the, within these communities. Let's target these folks. Let's not target these organizations that don't make sense for us because of a variety of reasons. And I remember when I was an inside sales rep, back at the beginning of my career, and now, they were not, I guess it would have been considered an SDR. We would get these leads from marketing and we'd say, holy smokes, like this organization, this lead is completely unqualified. This is this is someone in their basement, and it usually happened from inbound. But I remember being so frustrated. I don't know if you remember the tool Leadlander.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
You remember those guys?
Yes.
I think they're still around. And in any case, I remember sitting there and my CEO would be like, hey, we had all these folks hit the website, go and give them a call. And I'd be scratching my head going, And is it me, or like these are not qualified organizations, right? So the ability to identify those companies and then the individuals within those companies, I think are just is there today to a much larger extent than 5-10 years ago, even maybe like I guess 3, right?
Oh, sure. The amount of technology that has come about in the past year has just exploded. And to your point about it, inbound, and I share a similar philosophy. I look at inbound in the same way, and you made a great point, and it's one of my pet peeves about website visitors. Just because someone fills out a form doesn't mean they're qualified. It's not a marketing qualified lead. It's not a sales qualified lead. I make the analogy to that person that you might see playing an instrument in the subway or on the sidewalk somewhere, and then they have their hat out, and if you like what they're playing, you might throw $1 in or some coins or whatever. So that person playing the song is your webpage, and the hat is either the form that they fill out, or the tracking software, Google Analytics or whatever, that's going to track who puts in the dollar. And that dollar, instead of $1, it's a business card. So what's the difference if someone walks by and throws in a business card? Okay, it's a random drive-by, and it's random inbound. It's not qualified. It's because they like what they saw or they like what they heard. Doesn't mean it's interest.
Yeah,
it's not qualified.
I mean, think about this, Kevin. Like, I would spend half of my week on inbounds. And it wasn't intentional, and I think one of the disconnects was like, sales would say, oh, marketing's sending me all this stuff so they can hit their lead count. But obviously marketing didn't want to send over junk. They just actually didn't know. Right. And so I think that's the alignment here is really, really powerful. And I think now we're able to see high growth companies really jam leveraging these technologies in a way that we've never been able to do in the past. I had a quick question for you, Kevin, around, we've been talking on the sales side. And so within my career, I've always been technically a sales guy, right? Mm-hmm. And although I have done a ton of marketing and studied marketing and that kind of stuff, I never had like a marketing title at a real company. I joke around and say, well, my ventures, well, maybe weren't real companies. But in any case, we've talked about the sales stack, I guess now for the last 2 years or something like that. What is the marketing stack? Like, what's that tech stack? What's that, that suite of applications or software that marketers have put together over the past few years to be able to effectively, market and reach their audience and convert, MQLs and drive revenue? And if I'm a founder, and I'm sitting there saying, okay, great, we've gotten to a point where we're now going to invest in this stack or in this marketing tech. What are some of the recommendations that you might have?
And George, that's a great question, and thanks for asking that. And I share a similar background as that. I'm a sales guy trapped in right now for this into particular instance. I'm in a marketer's body. And I don't know why. It's always been baffling to me why sales and marketing don't communicate, because it seems to be the most common sense thing that anybody can do in an organization. If marketing does their job and sales do their job and they do align together, then revenue is just naturally going to occur. But we can talk about that for hours. So to answer your question, there was a conference recently in San Francisco, the Martech USA conference, and they revealed that the marketing technology offering has grown an astounding 87% last year. So think about that. The amount of offerings has nearly doubled in the last year as far as marketing technology goes. So if you're a SaaS founder and you have a startup, you have to be scratching your head saying, okay, where do I turn? Because there's so many redundant technologies out there, and there's some not so redundant technologies out there, but you can just get lost in the details about trying to align so many products to figure out what you want to occur. And I always subscribe to the simplistic method. There's only about 6 basic technologies that you really need in your MarTech stack. There's a few key elements that every company should have. 1 is predictive, 2 is content, 3 is social, 4 is marketing automation, 5 is personalization, and 6 is CRM. So for predictive, yeah, I'll drop some names. The one that I like is Sales Predict. I know that your company is doing a lot of things in that area as well. And for full disclosure, I don't know enough about your company, although I've heard some really great things. And I'm looking to investigate more about your company. I really like that article that your founder put together yesterday, because predictive analytics is something that I've been associated with for decades, and I've had tremendous success. One of my pet peeves, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to talk about this later, is why companies don't do more predictive. But we'll get on that later. As far as content goes, you have to have some kind of web presence. It's just amazing. I don't care whether it's just a one-page landing page, but you have to do something with a CTA. I always like a content aggregator that people can use to push out content on social throughout their entire team and organization. Employee advocacy, I like R Factor for that. For social, again, you can use free tools like Buffer, Hootsuite. Those are very effective, coming with some built-in analytics as well. Marketing automation, take your pick. Marketo is nice. Pardot, Eloqua, Acton, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Really doesn't matter as long as you're using that. Personalization. I use the category of personalization as sort of a catch-all for account-based marketing. We're talking about email personalization. You mentioned targeted ads that goes toward the account-based intelligence that you talked about. Again, there are a slew of companies. Do your own investigation, see which one you like. I'm not going to name anybody right now at the risk of offending a lot of the companies that we do work with, because I don't want to get any phone calls to saying, oh, you picked and play favorites. So we're going to leave that one alone. CRM, the 800-pound gorilla, is Salesforce. It seems like everybody's using it. They've got a nice suite of applications that work in concert with each other. So people may say they hate it, but look, it's a big box and it works. And the number 7 one that it really should be number 1 is measurement. If you're not measuring your efforts in all these technologies and it's not ending up in a revenue measurement, then you are wasting your time. Now, ideally, these are all going to work together. And, that's what people come to us for, to make sure that they all work together. But that is what you should look at if you're a SaaS founder or looking at a startup. Those six topics should have you covered.
Kevin, what do you use to discover content? And I had a quick question before you answer, in addition to the content question. Marketers now, it seems like we've spent a ton of time starting to create content. And I understand the value around having a content blog now. I mean, HubSpot has done a great job of creating this like inbound marketing movement and all that stuff, right? So I get it, right? I get the SEO, I get the value. What's your take from a marketer's perspective around, if I'm a B2B marketer, I have all these great now social channels that are, in my mind, just extensions to the brand, right? And I create a lot of content, but I also share third-party content that aligns with the topics or keywords, etc., that my brand is aligned with, right, or stands for. What's your opinion on the balance? How much blog content or in-house content do I create versus the sharing of third-party content?
And that's a really great question. And there's a tried and true strategy that says for every 6 pieces of content you share, 4 should be third-party content that is aligned, as you said, around the keywords or the thought leadership that your company is trying to establish. 1 should be one of your own company's pieces of content, and 1 should be a piece of content that personalizes you to let people know that you're not just an automated, social channel that's on broadcast. That's the strategy that I like to follow myself. That's been very successful for me. I think that where content plays probably the most important part in my strategy. I use the 3 C's. Content, conversation, conversion. The content is the linchpin of our strategy. because content goes out there, and then how people interact with the content, that puts them into the machine. Because then every time once they interact with the content, and now this is going to sound, kind of draconian, but we own you then, because we know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it. So I know that's just probably just told people just to stay away from interacting with my content, but at the risk, it happens to everyone. Don't worry. Some are just better at it than others. But anybody who has concerns about internet privacy, just stay off the internet, because everybody's tracking everything everybody does. Just accept it, and bow down to our benevolent overlords at Google, and Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, and everyone else, because everyone tracks everything. And you can put up as many ad blockers and as many kind of firewalls as you want, but yes, you are being watched. Thank you, George Orwell. But content spurs conversation, which spurs conversion. If you think about that in terms of your process, and you're sharing the right contextually proper content at the right time, which goes back to my theory about predictive analytics and telling you who's going to buy, when they're going to buy, what time they're going to buy, that is when you're going to get revenue success.
Got it. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And just to sort of augment my question, how do you find great content?
Well,
third-party content.
Great third-party content. I have there's several tools that I use that I have feeding me content based on keywords, content based on topic, content based on account personas, content based on buyer personas. That it comes to me at the beginning of my day, and I have it all. Some of it I do ad hoc, but a lot of it I do scheduled to come out, to be sent out at certain times. And I don't share as much content as I used to, because I'm a big believer in the less is more. I want to share the most up-to-date, freshest content, across my social channels, and different social channels. I have different strategies about the type of content that I share. And again, I think that the best way for anybody starting out, it would be to probably develop your ideal buyer persona, your ideal account personas, and think about what type of message that you wanted to put out as a company. And if you tie everything into that stack that I talked about, and you track your interactions with people as they interact with your content, and based upon their actions, you can go ahead and feed them additional content and track what they do with that. And you will know when the right time is to have that conversation, to move the conversation offline and push everything to sales. I mean, that's a very simplistic overview. There's a lot more complexity to it. And, I just said that in 2 minutes, but I don't want to make everybody's eyes glaze over, because I can talk about that for hours.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, I know you're one of the top marketers right now, I would say, in the space. What's the future of marketing and like specifically marketing technology?
Well, as I stated earlier, I'm a scientist, and data drives every sales and marketing decision I make, and every move that I take. I really don't like to make predictions. I always joke around with people that if I were able to predict the future, I'd just move to Las Vegas and take my crystal ball and just pick NFL games. I mean, be a heck of a lot more exciting and infinitely more profitable. By
the way, I'm a Miami Dolphin fan, and I've been for years.
I'm a New York Giants fan, so at least we're not competing.
At least we won something in the past couple of years. I remember Dan Marino, rookie year, and being in Miami, and we were like, oh my God, this is it. And then he had a good career, but we didn't win it.
Yeah, I thought it was dynasty in the making. Yeah, he was terrific.
Oh, right. Yeah, anyway,
absolutely. But here's what I'd like to see happen, George. I can't understand for the life of me why, and I'm sorry to beat a dead horse, companies don't leverage predictive analytics more. It just seems to me that if they use the power of data and predictive to sharpen their sales processes and marry their outcomes to their buyer's journey, they're going to far outpace organizations that don't do it. You see this on a daily basis. I mean, marketing sales will align. You can get rid of that asinine sales pipeline forecast model that doesn't mean anything, where you have sales reps, and you've done it, I've done it. You're either sandbagging or you're overestimating, and it doesn't mean anything. That's just guesswork. All right. And you want to say, okay, well, people are going to argue predictive is prediction. No, it's based on data. It's based on science. It's based on historical activity. Listen to me. Understand this. If you want to Google something, Google multivariable linear regression analysis. Okay. And then talk to me about your sales pipeline forecast, which is just a guess. Okay. That's what I'd like to see happen. Just if you don't understand any technology, and if there's one technology, get into predictive. Okay. Predictive is the future. Now that sounds kind of redundant, but that's what
I agree.
Yeah.
What we're doing at Node is all about, this intelligence at the account level, which, ultimately rolls down to the contact level or the human level.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything that's associated with the human and the account, and then try to actually, generate or infer, recommendations and those sorts of things. And so I think if you think about it, and what the beauty in my mind about the data is, the data is unbiased, right? The data doesn't care, who's a top producer, who's not, who's got the best accounts, who's not, best on paper, the nice brands, right? And that's what I love about the ICP, or this whole, ideal customer profile notion, which again is not, is not a new concept, right? I think I just missed the millennials, so I forgot what I am, but Y something. Anyways, for X generation. Anyways, but in any case, I know we like to, talk about these categories like account-based X, like lead generation, like all these other things. But these are not, again, new concepts. And we think about the ideal customer profile. I mean, that's just really logical to me, right? It's just saying, at the beginning of a venture or business, I think there's some very intelligent sort of guesses that should be data-based or data-backed, right? That we make and say, hey, we're going to go and actually experiment. And that's why I like to, really talk about it as an experiment. And over time, I think, and I'd love your feedback on this, but I believe it's, we made some assumptions or guesses around who we think our ideal customers are, and we've created these buyer personas or these profiles. Now it's a matter of actually verifying what indeed is the ideal customer, who that ideal customer is, and not only just saying who's actually buying the quickest, with the highest, let's say, in SaaS or subscription and license, ACV, but who's seeing the most value, right? Who's seeing the most value? Who's renewing? Who's really creating these great case studies that we can use to actually close more business. And this is the thing that just really baffles me sometimes, because you see sales leaders out there or sales organizations who are just focused on the top of the funnel that's getting them to the and when I say funnel in this case, I'm saying, all the way through customer success and account management and post-sale stuff. And they're not really thinking about the backside, right? And so what's, again, happening after the close. And so I think about these buyer personas or ideal customers as, who's seeing the most value as well. So I'd love your opinion. What's your opinion on that? Is that a good framework to think about this stuff from?
Yeah, well, yeah, you hit on a couple really good points, George. The first being what you've described. Essentially, it's the scientific method. You make a hypothesis, you measure the data, and then your data either confirms or is going to change the hypothesis, and then you're going to act upon what the data measures, because the data is what the data is. As they say down here in Maryland, it is what it is. So. If your hypothesis was this particular type of company with this particular type of demographics, with this particular type of sales, is the right company to sell to at this particular time, then that's the company that you're going to go after. If that doesn't fit your data, if that doesn't fit your model, then guess what? You just learned something that you can apply moving forward. So either way, it's going to be a success because you're going to change your path toward generating revenue. Now, where a lot of companies do fall short is they are looking at historically bad data. And again, if we're going to keep going with the cliches, garbage in, garbage out. When you're crushing your Salesforce data to build these predictive models, if you have historically bad data, it's going to take a couple of cycles for you to realize that what you had been going by on the past is not going to bode well for the future. And that's just an inherent problem in your organization. That's a data issue. That's not a sales issue. That's a data issue. I also think that in terms of finding out the best way to sell, one of the things that you need to do is also have transparency throughout the organization. Again, sales and beating the dead horse. Sales and marketing, everybody has to have the buy-in. If that doesn't occur, you're going to be spinning your wheels. It doesn't matter what type of technology or what type of process you're going to employ. It's just not going to work.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. If the audience wants to get in contact with you, what are your social handles? And what's your contact information? Is there anything you want to share also with the audience?
Oh, sure. Yeah. There's one thing that I'm really excited about. I've developed a really exciting process. It's a platform really here at Marketry. It's called ABM Social. It's revolutionary. And, I'm really excited about it because, it marries social media activity and social selling to account-based marketing. That's why we're calling it ABM Social.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I've been thinking about this, Kevin. We got to catch up offline here.
Yeah, we do. It's, again, like everything, it's data and analytics driven. So, and the framework spans the entire customer journey from from employee advocacy all the way through social selling to account-based marketing. Again, could talk about this for hours. If you want to know more, you can catch me on LinkedIn. My name, Kevin Thomas Tully. You can get me on Twitter. Twitter didn't have enough letters, so it's Kevin T. Tully. Just think of me, just like can't pronounce it. Kevin T. Tully. Kevin Kevin T. Tully. And everywhere else, I'm just Kevin Thomas Tully. Just my pompous Irish immigrant parents named me Kevin Thomas Tully, so blame them.
And I gotta just plug your organization. Who is your ideal customer, and if someone fits that profile, why how do they actually get in contact with the organization, and what are the types of services you can help them really optimize?
Oh, well, thanks for asking, and thanks for letting us do that. The name of our organization is Marketry, and the best way to think of that is marketing and artistry. So marketing and artistry. So Marketry. Okay. And again,
love it. I'm an artist too. So
yeah, I know. I saw that on the wall. I figured you appreciate that. Yeah. So we solve revenue issues for enterprise sales and marketing teams. And it's www.markistry.com, markistry.com. Easiest way to get in touch with us. All contact information is there. And anything that you need in the realm of account-based marketing, demand gen, lead management, or as I mentioned, our new platform, ABM Social, we're here to help.
Fantastic. Kevin, have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, George. I appreciate you having me on today. Had a lot of fun.
Have a great day.
You do the same. Thank you.